Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a really fascinating book, Constantinople in the Qur'an, which, let me tell you, challenges a massive cornerstone of Islamic history.
You've probably heard this famous prophecy before. For centuries, pretty much everyone has agreed that it was fulfilled way back in 1453 when the Ottoman Sultan Muhammad Fatih conquered Constantinople. It was a huge, pivotal moment in world history.
But what if that's not the case? The book we're exploring today makes a really controversial argument that the real prophesied conquest, well, it hasn't even happened yet.
So how on earth does the author get to that conclusion? Well, his entire thesis really rests on re-examining the original prophetic texts, but not just looking at them on their own. He says you have to see them as part of a much larger, very specific sequence of events. According to the author, it's not just about what happens, it's about when it happens. The order of events is absolutely everything. And he argues that the 1453 conquest just doesn't fit into the prophesied timeline. So, what is that timeline?
Right, so this is really key to the whole book. The author says this prophecy isn't some standalone prediction. No, it's just one link in a very specific, unbreakable chain of events that has to happen in a precise order.
Okay, so here's the sequence. It starts with Jerusalem becoming center stage in the world. Then, a massive global conflict known as the Great War, or Malhama. And here is the crucial part. The prophesied conquest of Constantinople is supposed to happen after that Great War. The author's point is pretty simple. Since this Great War hasn't happened yet, the 1453 conquest can't possibly be the one the prophecy was talking about.
And get this, the timeline gets even tighter. The source points to a prophetic text saying these last three big events, the Great War, the conquest of the city, and the appearance of the Antichrist, will all happen back to back, in a rapid-fire span of just 7 months.
So, if the timing is all wrong, what about the people involved? This brings us to another central part of the author's interpretation. He argues that the real key to the whole thing lies in a Quranic term that he says has been misunderstood, Rome.
So let's talk about the tale of two rooms. The author is pretty insistent that to understand his privacy, we first have to figure out who Rome really refers to. And he claims it's not just one single entity, but two.
Now, this is the standard definition you'll find everywhere. Rome refers to the Byzantine Christian Roman Empire, with its capital in Constantinople. Simple enough, right? Well, the author argues that a massive, pivotal event literally shattered this empire, creating two completely distinct civilizations with totally different destinies. And that event was the Great Schism of 1054. The book argues this wasn't just some internal religious disagreement. Nope. He says it was a major civilizational split, one that created what he calls Rome of the East and Rome of the West. And the author draws a really sharp line between them. He identifies Rome of the East with Orthodox Christianity, think Russia, for example, which he argues stayed faithful to sacred law. Then you have Rome of the West. He says this is what evolved into modern secular civilization, which abandoned sacred law and, in his view, eventually formed a Judeo-Christian Zionist alliance.
Now, to support this idea of a spiritual split, the author connects it all to a specific story in the Qur'an, a parable about a city by the sea. He argues this is a direct metaphor for Constantinople itself.
So the book draws a direct line from this parable, which is all about a community being tested on whether they'll obey sacred law, to a very real physical place.
He identifies Constantinople as this very city by the sea, arguing that its geography, being on a peninsula, is a perfect fit. And in the story, the city's people split into two groups, one that stayed faithful and another group that just repeatedly violated the Sabbath.
And this second group, the one that broke the law, they received a pretty strange and severe punishment. But here's the crucial part. The author argues this punishment wasn't a physical change, but something much deeper, a profound spiritual and cultural one.
So the book argues that the punishment, "be apes despised," shouldn't be taken literally. He interprets it as a metaphor for adopting a shameless, materialistic way of life. A way of life that he directly links to the path that Rome of the West, or modern Western civilization, took after the Great Schism.
Okay, so let's put this all together. If the 1453 conquest wasn't the one, and if there are two totally different rooms with different destinies, then what does the author believe the future actually holds?
He concludes that the true, prophesied conquest is still to come. But here's the kicker. Its purpose, he argues, isn't about hostility. It's an act of rectification. He says a grave wrong from 1453 has to be corrected to pave the way for a brand new and very surprising alliance.
And this brings us to the author's really startling conclusion. He sees a great war coming, the Malhama, where Rome of the East, Orthodox Christianity, will actually be victorious. It's only then that the true Muslim conquest of Constantinople happens. And its ultimate purpose, he claims, is to forge a grand alliance between the Muslim world and the world of Orthodox Christianity. So how does looking at it this way change things? Well, by reinterpreting this single prophecy, the author basically lays out a radically different map of our geopolitical future. It's one where he argues ancient religious identities, not modern politics, are the forces that are truly going to shape the world to come.